Welcome to Leadership Rules, where we believe leadership isn't just a role, it's a way of life. Whether you're leading a team, a community, or simply leading yourself, we're here to help you unlock the rules to lead your life with purpose and impact. I'm Nick Caniglio with Marnie Stockman, and welcome to our podcast. Today's guest, Bob Burg, has made a big impact in our lives, and we're so excited to welcome him. For more than 30 years, he's been successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to build relationships, communicate their value, and accelerate their business growth. Although for years he is best known for his sales classic, Endless Referrals, it's his business parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, that has created a worldwide movement.
It's certainly how we came to connect with him. He really spoke our language. So while part of a 4-part series, The Go-Giver itself has sold well over 1 million copies, been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of the most influential books ever written, and was on HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is the creator of the Go-Giver Academy online learning portal, featuring the Go-Giver Success Vault, which includes all of his online courses, as well as additional business building resources. He also publishes the very popular Daily Impact email. Both of these can be found at his website, which is burg.com, B-U-R-G.com. I personally am very picky about the regular newsletter emails that I get and read, and I read Bob's daily.
Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He's also an unapologetic animal fanatic and serves as part of a South Florida rescue, foster, and adoption organization.
Yay! So welcome, Bob Burg.
Wow. Great to be with you both. Thank you.
We're so excited to have you and pick your brains about all things Go-Giving. I mean, we certainly have read a good bit of what's on your brain about Go-Giving, but we are so excited to have you here live. But I would like to start by asking you a question.
Well, I've got to congratulate you on your book. Of course, you took one of my all-time favorite TV series and made it into one of my all-time favorite books. So it doesn't get much better than that.
Oh, that is.
Thank you so much.
Very honored to have you say that. Yeah, Ted Lasso was, well, as you know, right? It inspired us and impacts all. I think he might have read The Go-Giver before. I think all of the writers might have read The Go-Giver before writing. As a matter of fact, I would love to hear what's on their list, because clearly they had so much background in self-help and leadership and all those other pieces. Yeah. So we'll have, one day when we run into them, we'll have to ask if they've read your books.
I think one of the greatest leadership things he did was when he gave each of them a book to read, and it was about something they needed to read. And that, it's sort of when you look at what leadership really is and focusing on those you're leading. It was probably the perfect, and you talked about it in your book, of course, and it was probably the perfect example of a leader truly pouring in to their team and seeing them as a team, bringing them together as a team, realizing that they're all individuals with individual needs, wants, desires, challenges, and so forth. So I remember just being so inspired when I saw that.
I believe I cheered for that moment in that episode as much as I cheered for any wins along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, yes, oh, brilliant. I was jumping around the house like a lunatic. So I hear you. One of our other favorite parts of the show was all the teams. So I think that was a great team builder, right? With individual bonding with particular teammates, and then of course with Rebecca, he did biscuits with the boss.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
So we're gonna do some biscuits with the boss with you. If I can.
Okay.
So the first one is well, we got to go with Ted's first concert, best concert.
Say that one more time. I didn't.
First concert, best concert.
First concert I ever attended?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Chicago.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah, back when I was in high school. In fact, it was my first 2 concerts because they came back the next year to the Boston Garden, or as we would correctly say in that area, the Garden. And and then I also saw and another one which was also my favorite, I guess, was Jefferson Starship. And the opening act was this band I hadn't really heard of before, and they would do pretty good for themselves, Fleetwood Mac.
Oh yeah, they
Wow.
did pretty well for themselves.
They
Yeah.
did pretty well for themselves, for sure.
Yeah.
So we see
That's
you drinking out of your cup there, coffee or tea?
It's coffee. It's Rachel's famous coffee. At least the mug part, even though there's not really the coffee, but
yeah, nice. I love it
Dunkin'
from the
Donuts
book.
coffee, which is what I picture anyway for Rachel's.
Excellent. So fizzy water, sip it or spit it.
I don't really drink a lot of fizzy water. I would imagine I'd sip it, but right, wouldn't you? I don't know. I guess I'm talking about something I don't know about because I really just drink water. So
Yeah.
I actually got I got a water from a fast food place the other day, and it was not water; it was the carbonated water
Oh,
that comes with soda. And as my mouth was full, as I realized it, I really didn't want it. I thought, well,
just
Ted Lasso would spit it, but I'm driving and I don't need my windshield, so I'm gonna swallow it. But I
yeah.
wasn't pleased with that.
I think sip it was a good call.
So
So
sip
we
it.
know your love for animals, dog or cat.
Well, when it comes right down to it, dogs are very, very special to me. But I love all animals. They're all precious. And but yeah, I guess even though right now I have a cat, I'm a dog person. Yeah.
So then, last one to sort of transition: leadership, nature or nurture.
Wow. So that is so hard to have a one word answer for
Yeah, it is.
because I think it's an and as opposed to an or.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would agree.
Mm.
All right, so let's get down to it. So we mentioned this in our intro, but you probably don't know this. We read The Go-Giver many years ago, and we are truly humbled and honored. It truly made such an impact on where we've been, where we continue to go, and it's been critical to so much of the success that we had. So we'd like to kind of start there, if that's okay. I'd like to ask you, in your own words, what exactly you and John mean by the term the go-giver, and really as a follow-up to that, how it might relate to leadership.
So basically, being a go-giver, if you will, is simply understanding that shifting your focus, and I think that's really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Again, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well, speaking in terms of the entrepreneur, if you will, at this time, but not for any kind of woo-woo, way out there, magical, mystical reasons either. It actually makes very rational, very logical sense, because when you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, making it about helping them overcome and solving their challenges, their problems, helping to move them closer to happiness. People feel good about you. Really, they feel great about you.
Yeah.
They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell the world about you. And while again, the book was written with the entrepreneur or salesperson in mind, many leaders picked up on that and said, yes, that's exactly the same. So what does a leader have to do? Just like when we were talking about Ted earlier, right? It's discovering making it about that other person.
Yep.
What is it they need, what they want, what nobody's, I used to say, to sales, when I was on the road speaking at sales conferences a lot, I used to begin by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to buy from you because you have a sales goal, you need the money, or even because you're a really nice person. They're going to
Yeah.
buy from you because they believe that they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. Well, as a leader, right? Same thing. No one's going to follow you. No one's going to buy into your goal. No one's going to commit to you and your idea, your vision, because it's your vision or because you would like them to. The world doesn't work that way. They're going to do it because first you're able to tie your vision into their needs, wants, desires, and because they know that you care about them as a human being, that you have their well-being at heart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm curious, just as a follow up to that. I mean, is that a philosophy that you and John developed over time? Did you, did you figure it out along the way? Did you have a mentor? What was really the point in which you were like, okay, yeah, this really works?
Well, as far as the go-giver is concerned, from not as it relates to leadership, but just in terms of the overall
Yep. Yep.
element of the go-giver, with me, and John was a very successful entrepreneur and leader who had his own journey, and he was fantastic. With me, I started out as a broadcaster, and I like to say graduated into sales. I knew nothing about sales when I started, and apparently the company where I was working didn't either because our sales trainers let us go out and sell. Well,
Nice.
so I stumbled for about 3 months before being in a bookstore, and this is about 40 years ago now. So you didn't. Not everybody knew about all the information out there. Wasn't as much information out there
Yeah.
back then, right? But nobody really knew. I didn't know there was such a thing as sales teaching or training. I thought you just knocked on doors, made the calls, blah 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 about your product or service, and you hopefully got a sale. I really didn't know. And so I got 2 books. One was by Tom Hopkins, one by Zig Ziglar, 2 of the icons, of course, in the sales space. And I just started studying and learning. And, every night I always say I never read those books. I devoured them. And I would do that every single night afterward. And within about 3 weeks, my sales began to go through the roof. Now, why? It wasn't because there was any real difference at this point in me from 3 weeks earlier, other than I now had a methodology. I now had a system. And, I would personally define, because I'm always defining things, kind of obnoxiously so, I define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then all you need to do is A and continue to do A, you'll get the desired results of B. So that was inspiring. So now I'm starting to totally immerse myself in sales, teaching, going, listening to, back then it was cassette tapes, going to the, conferences, So, but what I began to realize too is that it wasn't just learning about sales, it was the personal development aspect.
Yeah.
So I started getting all the books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich and Psycho-Cybernetics and Richest Man in Babylon and all the Ogmandino stuff, right? And so to me, it was a progression that way. Now, a few years later, actually, I was working for another company where I got promoted to sales manager, or sales leader, and I was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I knew nothing about that. And again, I didn't know there was anything to know. And the people who promoted me didn't really know either. So I was hard. So it was something where, I was a good producer, horrible leader.
Yep.
So I didn't even know, again, that there was something about leadership that you could learn. One day, and this is a couple of years later, because I was a total failure at that job as a leader, but I was dating a woman whose mom gave her a book to give me, and it was by Dr. John Maxwell, called Developing the Leaders Around You. Okay. And that was just the first book I have. And that was the first book I ever knew there was anything about how to lead. Then I went back and started reading the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, which to me was a game changer. This said to me, okay, there's a methodology here that is really right from the beginning. And I started going through it. Right. So that's kind of how it progressed with me. I always begin by knowing nothing. And once I recognize that I know nothing, right? Because the dangerous part is when you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
once you know you're in a position to do something about
To
it.
do something about it. So it's interesting. You mentioned defining things and John Maxwell. And my next question is, we're also fans of John Maxwell, another leadership authority, obviously. So one of his sort of definitions is that leadership is influence,
Mm,
nothing more, nothing less.
right.
So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. So and here's why. Let's define a term again.
Yeah, let's.
Let's define influence. Now, on a very, very basic level, basic definition, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. I'd say that also defines leadership, but right here
Yeah.
it defines influence, right? Now but here's the thing. And so I totally agree with that. Leadership and influence. Yeah. But here's the thing. Um, that's the definition of influence. I don't believe that's the essence of influence.
Oh, I
The
like this.
the essence of influence, and I know Dr. Maxwell would agree with this because he teaches this. He's the master of it. The essence of influence is pull. Pull
As
as
opposed to
opposed
push.
to push, right? We've all heard the saying, "How far can you push a rope?"
A rope.
And the answer is not very, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers, what we would call, what John and I would call genuine influencers, don't push. You never hear someone say, that Dave or that Mary, she is so influential. She has a lot of push with people. No, she's
Yep.
influential. She has a lot of pull with people.
Yeah.
Push is compliance, right? It's threat. Right. Pull is an attraction,
Yep.
right? Great influencers, great leaders, right? Attract people to them, not by pushing themselves or their ideas or whatever on others, but by attracting to them first to themselves
Yeah.
and then to their ideas. And we would say the way they do this is, again, placing their focus in the right place. Now, we want to be internally motivated, but outwardly focused. So the genuine influencer constantly asks themselves questions, and it goes back to something we were talking about earlier, and that is, how does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their
Yeah.
needs, their wants and desires, with their values? How does
Yeah.
what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it align or how does it help them solve a problem? How does it move them closer to happiness? And see, when we ask these questions of ourselves thoughtfully, intelligently, um, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human
Yeah.
being in doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process. Now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment as opposed to compliance. One of my great friends and mentors, her name is Dondi Scumaci. She's a leadership speaker and author and all over the world to companies, team building, mentorship, and she's brilliant. And I love what Dondi says about this. She says, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to influence, compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
Mm.
Love that.
You know what? It also reminds, we always talk about leadership. It happens beyond a boardroom, beyond a classroom, behind a locker room, right? It can happen in your living room.
Right.
And this piece about influence is very much the piece that kind of parents need to hear sometimes, because try that compliance versus commitment piece with a 14-year-old and get back to me.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when we look at that compliance with, let's say, with an employee, just like with a child, can it work? Maybe for the moment it can.
Yeah, short term.
Yep.
Short
Yeah.
term. But just like with an employee, once you're not there to really enforce it or measure it or be right, it's not going to happen. And many times that employee is going to sort of sabotage the process,
Yeah.
consciously or
100%.
Yeah,
unconsciously.
either consciously or yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right. And
Yeah.
so is compliance a way of doing it? There, what Stephen M.R. Covey calls command and control, right? Does it, can it? Well, yeah, but not how we want it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
works. It just doesn't work the way we would like it to work.
100%. Yeah. So, switching gears a little bit, we title this podcast "Leadership Rules" because we believe that there are a lot of written and unwritten rules in leadership. And we wonder though if those rules are changing, just given the age that we're living in around technology with artificial intelligence everywhere. So, just a quick question: with the pace of digital transformation, automation, everything that's going on today.
Mhm.
Are there any leadership rules that you think are changing or need to change?
I think that if we're talking in terms of principles, no, I don't think principles ever change. I think because of the technology we have, there are always, strategies that can change and so forth. But, one of the things I'm probably most known for that I wrote first in my book, Endless Referrals, back in the 90s, is the statement, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to. And we could also say, and allow themselves to be led by those people they know, like, and trust. But it
Yep.
doesn't say all things being equal, people will, do business with, refer business to, allow themselves to be led by those computers they know.
Yeah.
So it's always the human to human, and I think that matters no matter what we're doing. It's like, when we talk about, B to B, business to business, B to C, business to consumer, really, it's always H to H. It's human to
Yeah.
human, right?
Yep.
I don't think that ever changes. I don't think it ever
Yep.
changes. I think that technology should always be used as the means to an end. And the end is the personal human connection that is going to inspire and that is going to build trust and that is going to, right.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say, as far as that goes, not a change, because humans are who humans are. What do you all think? I mean, you're the leadership expert. I'm not a leadership expert. You guys are leadership experts.
Yeah. We think, we talk a lot about, Adam Grant talks about the character revolution. We talk a lot about that. And I think you actually talked about that in The Go-Giver Leader. I think you said something to the effect of competence matters, right? But it's a baseline. It's character that impacts the world around you. And we talk a lot about technology today leveling out the playing field in terms of hard skills, technical
Exactly.
skills,
Right.
right? And it's almost as though a lot of positions out in the world are being commoditized, and really it's more important than ever, just to everything that you talk about. It's the character skills that are going to allow you to stand out and differentiate
I
yourself.
I, I
Um,
agree with you.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe it was, a gentleman by the name of, oh gosh, Jeff Colvin. He was the editor at large at Fortune magazine. He wrote a book called "Humans Are Underrated,"
Mm,
and the premise of the book was that, as technology continues to advance, which it's going to continue, we know that, right, and can be
Yep.
even more prevalent and have more to do. He said, the question used to be, what can humans do that technology can't do? Okay, now there's a whole different thing, because there's pretty much nothing in that way. He said, now it's more a matter of, what can humans do that technology probably can do, but people won't accept from technology.
yeah.
And
Yep.
he gives the example of a person who, whose relative, heaven forbid, dies in the hospital. They don't want to hear that from a printout.
Mm, yeah.
They
Yeah.
want to hear that from a
The
doctor
connection,
who cares
the
and
Yep.
relationship.
is sad and can
Yeah.
empathize and can, right. And what he was saying, what Jeff was saying, and I thought he made a great point, is that those people who can master, what are known as the soft skills, and I'll never totally understand why they're called soft skills, because to me they're the hardest skills for most people to learn. The people who can master feeling and empathy and connection and teamwork, and right, all these are the people who are always going to have the jobs, the highest paying jobs, the most sought after people. So yeah, I mean, I agree with the two of you. I agree with Professor Grant, and absolutely.
Um, so my brain spins in all kinds of directions, but I want to ask a question about mentoring. So we most recently read The Go Giver Leader. Super fan. There was a mentor in that book,
Aunt L,
Aunt
yeah.
L. Yeah. So in your
The
mind,
enigmatic Aunt L.
yes, she was. um, what is the difference between a mentor and a leader? And then what advice would you have someone looking for a mentor? And what advice would you have for a mentor? Like
Sure.
all 360 on that. How's that for a quick
Yeah.
throwaway question?
Well, I mean, leaders can be mentors. They don't have to be. They're sometimes two different things. A leader is in charge of or leading a certain organization. Someone's mentor might be just a person who they know, who is advising them in certain ways, guiding them in certain ways. But leaders can certainly be mentors. Probably the best leaders are mentors to those that they're leading and developing. As far as finding a mentor, I think one of the things that people do, and I see this a lot nowadays, probably because it's so much easier to actually get someone's ear than it ever was because of technology. But someone will see someone who they would like to have mentor them, and there's no real relationship
Mm.
between them, and they come right out and just say, "Hey, would you be
Would
my
you
mentor?"
mentor?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what we've got to realize is that, first of all, the person asking that, they've got to realize that person probably has if you want them to be your mentor, a lot of other people probably do as well. And they only have so much time, energy, what have you, to do that. So I think we can reach out pretty much to anyone who we're able to make contact with, but I think we need to approach it in a different way. So my suggestion is, if you'd like this person to be your mentor, rather than just asking for as they say, the marriage right before the date, is will you be my a mentor protege relationship is just that. It's a
Yeah.
relationship. It's not just
Yeah.
something you say, hey, okay, mentor protege. So the first thing to do would be to ask that question, phrase it in such a way as, I know you are very busy, and if this is something you don't have time to do, or for whatever reason would rather not, I'll absolutely understand. I'm wondering if I might ask you one or two very specific questions.
Yeah.
Now, this says to that person a couple of things. First, you honored the process. You didn't feel entitled to, for them to mentor you, right? The second thing is you gave them an out or back door, which they appreciate. You let them know
Yep.
they just not something. It's okay. I absolutely and this is that's part of human nature, is the desire for autonomy, to make our own decision, not feel backed into a corner. So they're most likely going to really respect that you did that. The third part, though, is that rather than just asking an open, can I pick your brain and ask you a ton of questions and one or two questions. So what does it say to that person? This young person knows what they want,
Yeah.
right? They have an agenda in a good way in this case. And they're not going to take a lot of my time. They know, right? So
Right.
now,
They're respectful.
so now they'll probably say, yeah, sure, go ahead. What can I do for you? Or make a time to whatever. Now, of course, this goes almost without saying, so why am I saying it? But you research that person so that you don't ask
Yes.
anything you
I
can.
think it's worth
Right.
restating.
Yeah. And then, so you ask them a couple of questions, and you make it a brief conversation. Thank them profusely for their time. Let them know how much you appreciate it, and that you'll put their information to work right away. Then what I would do is, immediately after the meeting, whether it's in person, Zoom, phone call, I would send this person a very brief, short, handwritten note. Okay. That just simply says, thank you so much for your time. Your wisdom is invaluable. I look forward to putting it to use right away. If it's okay with you, I'll check in and let you know how, or I'll keep you up to date on how I'm doing. Best regards. Boom. Put it in a regular envelope, hand stamp it with a regular stamp, not a meter stamp, and you send that out. Right there, you're going to separate yourself pretty much from everybody else. I would also do this, is find out their favorite charity or cause, which you should be able to do online, or ask their admin, whatever, and make a small donation, just a very small. It doesn't have to be big. A small donation in their name. It'll get back to that person. You're not doing it to kiss up to them. You're doing it, though, again, just to let them know how much you appreciate them, and that you want to be able to, in some way, be of value to them. You're at
Right.
least making the effort. Now, A couple weeks later, a few weeks later, maybe you follow up, let them know what you're doing, ask maybe another question. And eventually, if a mentor protege relationship is supposed to develop, it will. Right? It
Yeah.
might be you only have one or two conversations with this person, or maybe someone else, or maybe they introduce you to someone. You don't know. I would say go through that process without attachment to the results. And what you'll find is throughout your career, you're never going to have trouble bringing people into your world who can be of assistance. And of course, you'll do the same for others when you have that opportunity.
I felt like
Incredibly valuable. I
I
mean,
know.
we talk to so many young people who are kind of in that position. I think
Yeah.
that was gold right there,
Gold.
Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks
Agree.
for sharing that. You have a couple more minutes with us, or
Oh, of course, for you
okay?
all, absolutely.
So we were just talking about the go-giver leader, and you have your 5 keys to legendary leadership, and the last key was around practicing giving leadership. And I think maybe you touched on that a little bit about being a mentor, but is there anything else that's really intriguing to us? What exactly did y'all mean by that?
Yeah. And, John came up with that concept as he did with so much. He's such a fantastic writer and practitioner. I always want to make sure people know that, a lot of times I get credit because my name comes first in the alphabet B. But this guy,
I
he's
hear
so
you.
good at what he does and such a great leader and entrepreneur and writer. And so when we say giving leadership, it's sort of a noun and a verb, right? So giving leadership is a type of leadership. It's a type of
Mhm.
leadership where you're looking to give value
Mm.
to every single person who you can. The person who, directly, indirectly, what have you. It goes, okay. So it's a noun, but it's also a verb. You are actually um you are actually making it about the other person, making sure they get the credit, right? When there's something good
Mm.
happening, as opposed to making it about yourself. I remember in Jim Collins' great book, Good to Great.
Good
It
to
was
great.
great. Great Gatsby. It was great. It was great. Where he talked about the difference between a level 4 leader and a level 5 leader, right? And the level 4 leader and 5 leader, both just as talented, fantastic, right? But the level 4 leader, it was sort of about themselves. They were the star, right? With the
Yep.
level 5 leader, it was about everyone else in the company. It was about the company itself. When there was credit to be given, they gave that leadership away. When there was something difficult, they took, when something
Ownership.
bad happened, they took the responsibility.
Yep.
That's really giving leadership. You could say it's like servant leadership. It's a noun and a verb. It's a
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And so that's really what we mean by that.
I um I love that. I love that book too. So
Oh yeah.
the humility and sheer force of
Yes.
will for that
Yep.
level 5 leader I think is really critical. So we, as Nick said, we work with a lot of young folks. So what advice do you give the young up and coming leaders who are just starting off on their leadership journey?
Sure. So aside from just getting your hands on all the great leadership books out there, probably starting with John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws. And I think the first one, the law of the lid, was the foundational principle for everything. That's what said to me, you've got a long way to go, Berg. Right. And when so there's great books like John Maxwell's books, your books, um, uh, gosh,
Well, Daniel Pink
Steve,
comes to
Daniel
mind,
Pink,
Simon
Stephen
Sinek.
M.R. Covey,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Chapman, who wrote Everybody Matters, the chairman of Barry Waymiller, uh, Marquette. David Marquet, Turn Your Ship Around. I mean, there's so many. So do a study, do a deep dive into learning about leadership. But of course, you've got to also take the action. So we always, want to make sure people. I would also say make a study of human nature.
Hmm.
Really understand, really grasp human nature, the general psychological characteristics, that make up humans, because that's who you're dealing with all the time. It's always about them. So while people are individuals, of course, okay, and have their individual needs, wants, desires, reasons, so forth. Understanding the general pattern of how humanity works is very key. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is probably the best well known. There was a great book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel
Oh,
Kahneman.
yep.
Yeah, there's just there's a lot out there, but it's really understanding human nature. It's learning how to persuade. It's learning how to sell. Learning how all these things are leadership. So yeah, so I would actually start there, and then I would just say to them, you're going to have one main attribute that is going to take you through your leadership career, and that is the amount of trust
Mm.
that you inspire toward you in others.
So
And
I was
that's
going to ask, sort of along those lines of, after they study elements of leadership, what do they need to know about themselves, right? Kind of the personal leadership. What do you need to know about yourself to go on that journey? But then you said it.
well, and that's so important because it's learning about ourselves as well. Ray Dalio talks about that a lot in his book Principles, and there's many other books on that. But we've got to know ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses. We've got to know which weaknesses we can be okay with because they don't matter. But there's also, we need to know the weaknesses we need to mitigate, and those weaknesses we need to turn into strengths
Yeah.
Yep.
if we're going to be effective. So there's a lot to learn, but it's a very fun and enlightening ride.
Well, this has been fun and enlightening to us. And
Yes.
talk about, if you can, Bob, just real quick. Can you talk a little bit about the Go Giver Academy and all the other places where you're helping to mentor and coach others?
So the Go Giver Academy, what we've called the Go Giver Success Vault, is basically we've made available to everybody all my online learning courses. As well as a whole bunch of teachings from others, such as what we called Interview with the Legends. So Stephen M.R. Covey, Jeff Gitomer. We had one with Don Scumaci, who I mentioned earlier. There's also tons and tons of resources. Plus, quarterly, we do a group Q&A discussion. So there's a lot of interaction as well. And it's just a really fun but educational way for people who really want to learn but want to be able to do it from the comfort of their home in front of their computer while they're jogging or at the gym or what have you.
That's
Awesome. And
funny.
you have a newsletter as well, right?
Yeah, that's the Daily Impact email that I put out Monday through Friday, and that's a lot of fun. And it comes into the mailbox at 5 a.m. no matter where anyone is, so they can
it does.
read it with their morning coffee or tea, or keep it for later throughout the day. And we do hear from a lot of people that they print those out and share those with their teams.
With their team.
Yeah, at work.
So my alarm's set for 5:05 in the morning, and sometimes I only have one email in my inbox, and it's always from you. So I am a hot tea drinker, so yes, that is first on my list of things to do. So
I appreciate that.
So one final question for you: who in your life who would be your leadership hall of fame, personal leadership hall of fame?
Oh gosh, I mean, I guess you've got to go with people like John Maxwell. Don Scumaci would be. Stephen M.R. Covey. Gosh, so many great ones.
It's hard to narrow it down, isn't it?
Bob Chapman. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. A guy named Dan Rockwell who calls himself Leadership Freak, who does a daily blog. Guys, great. They're always short, succinct, but always have great lessons. There's so many great leaders out there that I've learned from and that have impacted my life in significant ways.
I have to thank you. I am laughing because my page now has more handwritten notes of takeaways for me on this call than notes of what I was going to ask you. So I'm really, as Nick said, humbled and flattered that you joined us today. We're really excited to be able to share this with our folks.
My absolute honor and pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. We appreciate it. Everything.